ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Maryanne Williamson. An older picture, or a filter. I don't know. Anyways, selling her book, a politics of love. I guess you'd have to call it a politics of love, because the politics of love sounds like a New Order or a Pet Shop Boys song. The politics of love, the politics of love. You and I voting differently underneath the sheets. The politics of love. Right? Great. Now I have to write a song called The Politics of Love. Why have I made so much work? Why do I always add work for myself? Sexy Liberal next year is going to be insane. Because I have to write this. Because she's got a book. And she's still... Oh, boy. Oh, God. Politics. And it... Right. That's right. It's an Ali G emote. That's fun. Okay, so let's jump in. This is Maryanne Williamson is on Newsmax, and DeSantis is on Russell Brand. So next stop, Flashpoint. Yeah, they're all on the downward spiral, leaving streaks on the bowl on their way down. Maryanne Williamson talks to 2024 on Greg Kelly. That's right. It's official, kids. My universe has collided. How? All right. I can't even. We'll find out. Let's go.
Best-selling author, political activist, and spiritual thought leader. Over 3 decades, she has been a leader in spiritual and religiously progressive circles.
She's been a leader in spiritually and religious circles.
15 books, including A Return to Love. Who didn't have that book around the house, right?
Please tell me Greg Kelly has a copy of A Return to Love. I hope he has a copy of Illuminata, because I'm thanked in it.
She has run for office. She ran for Congress. In 2020, she ran for the presidency and made the debates and really made some interesting points. Take a look.
She made some interesting points.
We don't have a health care system in the United States. We have a sickness care system in the United States.
Okay, real quick. I understand the sentiment that we need to have better focus on keeping people healthy than just treating sickness. But when you have limited resources, especially throughout the history of humanity, of course you are going to treat sickness as your primary way of expending what limited resources you have to take care of people. This is one of those phrases that sounds great until you think 1 inch past it. This is what you would call politically and spiritually the shallows.
Just wait till somebody gets sick, and then we talk about who's going to pay for the treatment and how they're going to be treated. What we need to talk about is why so many Americans have unnecessary chronic illnesses, so many more compared to other countries.
I'm going to go with more excess calories than almost any other country on the planet. A consumption index that outpaces our body weight 3 to 1. And arguably a weaponized sense of freedom, where we are taught that freedom includes our ability to treat ourselves like shit. The smoke 'em if you got 'em reflex, I would call it. Yeah, sedentary, bad diet, all those things fit in. Yes, absolutely, chat room. And by the way, can I just say for the record, where are you? Can you say hi to the chat room? We can. I love you guys and thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. One of the reasons why we had for the longest time, we had a combination of, there's one other factor, one other major factor that I would like to add is that scale-wise, the European Union being what it is, and not including Russia and not including, in theory, a couple of other Eastern European countries where the alcoholism and the death rate is way higher. Like if Russia had been included in Europe's, in the general balance of European lifespan, for example, it would bring it down to below ours. So there's one. The other thing too is that China lies, and so and India for the longest time had no way of keeping track. So on the one hand, you need to focus on your numbers because your numbers are the only ones that matter if you're trying to be a president or trying to run for any political office where you have control over that aspect of it. So you want to keep as many toxins out of the food supply as possible and as few toxins in people as possible. And then you can only protect people from themselves so much. But then you also have to recognize that you need legit numbers and you need to live by those legit numbers. You don't need numbers that are a lie. For example, the DeSantis numbers, for example. Where are we? There we go. Oh, right. I have to click back over to this. Beg your pardon. I'm so used to my system just working like it does, as you do.
Hey, interesting point. Maryanne Williamson, welcome to Newsmax. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So, real quick on that question.
Real quick, why am I so miserable? I read A Return to Love, and yet I'm the most miserable man on the internet.
Is it that we have all these problems, these illnesses that other countries don't have?
Vaccines, probably vaccines. I would say that's probably what it is. We get vaccinated, and that's what's making us all broken and stuff. Yeah, that's got to be it.
Well, for one thing, we have carcinogens and other toxins in our food and our water.
So does everybody else.
Ground, much more than other countries. If you look at...
No. We have obesity problems. Our cancer numbers aren't anywhere near on the level that other countries have as far as carcinogens available. And if you don't believe me, go look at the number of toxins in the ground throughout Central Africa.
The ingredients in a ketchup bottle in Canada compared to the ingredients in a ketchup bottle in the United States.
Yeah, I looked on both. I couldn't find ketchup in the ingredients on either one. I don't know what the hell's going on. What she means is high fructose corn syrup.
Another example, of course, is our water. It is reported that PFAS...
Yes, in Canada, they have an H and another H and an O. And in America, monosodium glutamate.
So forever chemicals are in something like, I read, 46% of American water. In Merrimack, New Hampshire...
46% of American water. Let's see. Because here's one of the things about forever chemicals. They don't follow. They don't pay attention to borders. I think this is. Let me see if I can find. Yeah. So she's looking at the Geological Survey. This is, from July 6th. Okay, here we go. Tap water study detects PFAS's forever chemicals across the United States. Hold on. This is what she's talking about. Let me show you something. Right here. National news release, USA, this is the US Geological Society.gov. This is our own government testing our water and finding these things out, which is what you want your government to do. You just want to, and then you next have to solve it. But at least we're looking. Okay, at least 45% of the nation's tap water is estimated to have one or more types of the chemicals known as per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, or PFASs, according to a new study by the U.S. Geological Survey. There are more than 12,000 types of PFASs, not all of which can be detected with current tests. The U.S. Geological Study tested for the presence of 32 types. The PFAs are a group of synthetic chemicals used in a wide variety of common applications, from the linings of fast food boxes and nonstick cookware to firefighting foams and other purposes. High concentrations of some PFASs may lead to adverse health risks in people, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, an organization, by the way, that Republicans would like to eliminate. And as soon as they hear about this study, I'm sure they want to go after the U.S. Geological Study as well, or Geological Society as well. Research is still ongoing to better understand the potential health effects of PFAS exposure over long periods of time because they break down very slowly. PFASs are commonly called forever chemicals. Their persistence in the environment and prevalence across the country make them a unique water quality concern. The USGS scientists tested water collected directly from people's kitchen sinks across the nation, providing the most comprehensive study to date on PFASs in tap water from both private wells and public supplies. Okay, now, real quick. Cool concern. Good for you. And again, we're in the shallows again. I accept. Go away. Real quick. This is, I want to remind you that that we want adults running things. Revealed the massive contamination of Europe by PFAS, forever chemicals. PFASs are toxic and virtually indestructible chemicals used in a wide variety, a range of objects, from anti-stick pans to medical implants. Le Monde has uncovered the existence of thousands of contaminated sites. It is a picture-perfect lake, a little piece of Scandinavian paradise in all its charm. The water is clear, and there are rare species of birds, and here and there islets bristle with vigorous conifers. Oh, Le Monde, you have a way with words, yes? For decades, however, Lake Tyrifjorden in Norway has been brewing a disastrous potion of invisible, harmful, and probably irreversible pollution. The chemical ingredients that contaminate its waters belong to a family of ultra-toxic substances with names so complex that acronyms have replaced them: per and polyfluoroalkyl compounds, or PFASs. Since the late 1940s, these chemicals with unique properties. Okay, do you see? If you're going to say why we are unhealthy in the United States versus Europe, you have to make and you're saying this is one of the reasons, then you have to present evidence that we have these things and they do not. That we are special in this aspect. We aren't. As a matter of fact, big sites in Europe and big aquifers in Europe have worse levels of PFASs than the United States does. Canada has less of it because they have large swaths of the country that are unoccupied. An enormous country with very few people in it. That's all. And so they're not like testing tap water along the areas where they polluted, quite frankly. All right. And believe me, I'm not crapping on Canada. They do great work to try and maintain their environment. But the size of the country is also going to give you a false negative in terms of what it's like when people start messing around in the water system. Okay, good. We're back to, are we back to where we need to be? So the case that Maryanne Williamson is making, let's back up when we see this.
Chemicals are in something like
hold on.
Compared to the ingredients in a ketchup bottle in the United States. Another example, of course, is our water. It is reported that PFAS, or forever chemicals, are in something like, I read, 46% of American water. You know, in Merrimack, New Hampshire, there's a company from France called Saint-Gobain that regularly spews PFAS into the water in that area. What's interesting to me is that they would not be allowed to do this. It would be legally impossible for them to do this in France. And like in many situations, companies that are told in their countries, oh, you can't do that, that would be unhealthy, you can't spew that carcinogen, you can't include that ingredient. So that's okay, I'll go over to the United States and I'll buy a company there. And this is happening. We are so deregulated when it comes to the ingredients in our food and so forth, because the profit...
Okay, back up.
And like in that area, that regularly...
Hold on.
Forever chemicals are in Canada compared to the ingredients in a ketchup bottle in the United States. Another example, of course, is our water. It is reported that PFAS, so forever chemicals, are in something like, I read, 46% of American water. You know, in Merrimack, New Hampshire, there's a company from France called Saint-Gobain.
Saint-Gobain, which is the patron saint of poison, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see. Saint-Gobain site, and this is newhampshire.gov. Saint-Gobain site investigation history, adhering for new Saint-Gobain and Merrimack to permanently this is okay. The overwhelming majority of PFAS sites in southern New Hampshire has been tracked back to a lone corporate culprit, Saint-Gobain. Well, let's take a look, shall we? Let's. Should we do this? This is about the Liberalism, the paper of socialism and liberation. The deadliest water New Hampshire has ever seen. Shut down Saint-Gobain. This is the paper. Okay. Right up here, however, newhampshire.gov. The detection of PFOA in the public water supply in 2016 prompted the investigation. Perfluorooctanoic acid, PFOA, was first detected in tap water sample in the Saint-Gobain Performance Plastics facility at 701 Daniel Webster Highway in Merrimack, New Hampshire in 2016. But as far back as 86, a company called ChemFab operated fabric coating and cast film equipment there using PFOA and other PFASs. Saint-Gobain purchased the facility in 2002 and continued to manufacture coated textiles and films using chemical dispersions that contain PFOA and PFASs. The manufacturing coated textiles at the facility involves dipping fabric into a mix of chemicals. This is the flame retardant pajamas chemical stuff. Air emissions. In 2004, Saint-Gobain conducted stack tests using testing and analytic methods that had recently been developed to evaluate the potential PFOA emissions from 3 coating towers at the facility. Wait a minute, why would they develop these things in 2004 if we've given up on we've deregulated ourselves? Okay. Upon review of the emissions detected, Saint-Gobain reported to NHDES that the emissions from the entire facility were predicted to exceed the ambient air limits established in NV 1400 regulated toxic air pollutants. They issued an administrative order by consent to Saint-Gobain, which required reformulation of the coatings to reduce PFOA content by the end of 2006. Additional stack testing was conducted in 2007, at which time Saint-Gobain demonstrated compliance with the AAL's using the information, emissions control, and current status. In 2018, the New Hampshire legislature passed legislation that added Section RSA 125C10E to air pollution control statutes. As a result, NHDES made a determination that Saint-Gobain was, quote, subject to the regulation and required to install best available control technology for PFAS emissions. Functioning regulations. Is there something, maybe there's something further down in here, perhaps at the end. There's a story where Biden got in and decided, fuck it, we're not bothering. Let's see, June report on 2018 stormwater, 2019, 2020. NHDS completed a review of this document. Comments will be presented in a letter to Saint-Gobain. Additional investigation documents are available to the public on the One Stop webpage. Site investigation work conducted at or adjacent to the facility includes, but is not limited to, installation of 50 monitoring wells, collection and analysis of approximately 500 groundwater samples. This is the response in the United States, just in New Hampshire, to what this company is doing. So, and again, let's be clear about what Maryanne Williamson is saying right here. She's saying we're so deregulated that they're just dumping PFASs, and you can just, if you're French and whatever, you can't do it in France, but if you come over here, they just let you do it. Site investigation work conducted at or adjacent to the facility includes, but is not limited to, installation of 50 monitoring wells, collection of an analysis of approximately 500 groundwater samples, collection of analysis of more than 100 soil samples, collection and analysis of approximately 190 stormwater and surface water samples, collection and analysis of fish tissue samples, permanent alternate water. Following the initial discovery of PFOA in area drinking water in 2016, NHDES launched a massive testing effort to determine the extent of the contamination. Saint-Gobain and NHDES worked cooperatively and quickly to address these properties at great risk, providing interim bottled water to impacted residents and point-of-use treatment systems, point-of-entry treatment systems, or waterline connections to over 500 properties, primarily in Litchfield and Merrimack. The 2018 consent decree entered into between the NHDES and Saint-Gobain memorialized the responsibilities with respect to the work already completed and providing waterline connections to an additional 302 properties. The idea that you can just come over and do this, and that, here's the biggest lie about this. PFAS are a serious concern, and solving for them requires a depth of thought that I do not see here. What she is presenting is what I would call the stroke of the pen myth. That everything about these things can be solved with the stroke of a pen, and the real problem is someone is not giving the stroke of the pen because they don't want this to happen. They want PFASs in the groundwater. They feel like the trade-off is, they flippantly regard it, they're money grubbing, blah, blah, blah. It's aggravating. This is, if you want to say, and here's why, I'll tell you why. You have to talk about it this way because saying more regulations are needed is not sexy enough. It's not enough of a panic attack to use fear to get you to vote another way instead of going, no, we're on track and we're trying to benefit this. We're trying to make the system more equitable and functional and solve these issues. And everybody's really looking into it and not just panicking at chemical bad, as if, we're falling into it's natural. Like, okay, but then smoke poison ivy, dummy. Don't do that. So this is what I would call the stroke of the pen fallacy. And I think it's a new phrase and I just made it up. And I think it's very prevalent both in Donald Trump's sales pitch. We have stupid people running everything. We can just get rid of the stupid people and we can do all this, right? And then on what would effectively be, quote unquote, the far left outer edges of this. So we just need somebody to stroke of the pen and all these problems would be gone. And we know, even just on RFK's stance on Israel, for example, that this is a load of shit. So, listen to this again.
In the United States. Another example, of course, is our water. It is reported that PFAS, or forever chemicals, are in something like, I read, 46% of American water. In Merrimack, New Hampshire, there's a company from France called Saint-Gobain that regularly spews PFAS into the water in that area. What's interesting to me...
Did you hear that? Now, I would argue that I guess... as a politician, maybe you can say stuff like this, but if she's learned anything from the Dominion lawsuits, you might want to,
that they would not be allowed to do this. It would be legally impossible for the...
Illegal is the word. Legally impossible. There's a word for that.
to do this in France. And like in many situations, companies that are told in their countries, oh, you can't do that, that would be unhealthy, you can't spew that carcinogen, you can't include that ingredient. So that's okay, I'll go over to the United States and I'll buy a company there.
No. No, they don't. As a matter of fact, if that's their attitude, they set up in South America, China, or some sections of the Middle East, in parts of India, although India is getting tougher about it, and Russia. And by the way, there's still a French company. So apparently that France, like we might set terms for our companies and how they can act in other countries, but apparently France doesn't.
And this is happening. We are so deregulated when it comes to the ingredients in our food and so forth, because the profits for these companies is placed before the health and well-being of the American people.
All right. Now, again, in the world of trade-offs, my friends in the chat, let's be abundantly clear. One of the reasons why the stuff that is around the Saint Gobain plant is put on fabric is to make it flame retardant. Flame retardant. Yeah. So that's so that it doesn't burn in a fire. You could argue that this is the result of specific regulations to make sure that blankets, for example, don't, that are used in cribs or in bedrooms and the like, don't burn easily. And so we found these flame retardant chemicals that we can coat stuff in, which saves lives from burning up, but also have a secondary effect. And this is not a situation where a company in enforced compliance decided, well, let's see, I really do like it when people burn to death, but I guess cancer's a good consolation prize. Ugh. And again, the oversimplification of this is the embarrassing part. Oy.
This is a systemic.
And also, you can see how unserious this whole thing is, because if you want to talk about PFASs, and specifically the ones that get into the water supply and that mess with us, the runoff from packaging plants is a much bigger issue. Plastics are a much bigger issue. And then the adhesives and the wrappers that go on stuff and labels and that kind of stuff, and the multiple layers of plastic so that they're not, they're flame retardant as well. And that part of it, that's way bigger. That affects way more people. Like if you talk about, 41% of America's water has PFASs in some form, which by the way includes the lining on the pipes, like stuff that breaks loose from the linings of the pipes, because the pipes are lead. So here you got the Biden administration trying to remove the lead pipes, so you will no longer need the liner, which contains some of the PFASs that you find in the water that breaks down over time. They're already working on it in a massive way, not just this company, blah, 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 where like, oh, French company bad. Okay.
And American people are waking up to it.
So Joe Biden's the president. He's the Democrat nominee. Or no, he's not yet. He was. He's not yet. You're running. How are you going to take Joe out? And
and can we help?
A little bit about what you think is wrong with his presidency so far.
Because that's why you're here. Your only job here is not to actually sell your campaign. It's we can't get Biden, so we want death by 1,000 cuts. So if you could come by with some pieces of paper or cardboard and give him just a couple of swipe cuts, that's the only reason we're having you on.
Well, the president is taking an incremental approach to ameliorating the stress that so many people feel living in this country. We've got 1 in 4 Americans who are living.
Okay, by the way, she just said, why do we have they played the clip of her saying, why do we have a sickness care system, not a health care system? Health care, caring for your own health and for the health of others, is incremental.
Medical debt. We have 1/3 of our people living on less than $15 an hour, half of them unable to even find a home here. We have
50% of Americans are not homeless. What?
$15 an hour. We have 1/3 of our people living on less than $15 an hour, half of them unable to even find a home here. We have 85 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. We have 25%. We have half of our senior citizens living.
Okay. The majority of people making less than $15 an hour are either in school or still live at home. Period. Secondarily, there are so many states where it's even higher than that. Even Arizona has a higher than $15 minimum wage at this point.
Less than $25,000 a year. So if you are in the top 20% of earners in the United States, the economy is doing quite well. But that 20%.
Wow, that's interesting, because it used to be the top 3%. And now, thanks to Joe Biden, the top 20% are doing quite well.
And it's like we're living on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. So the president...
She's a millionaire.
Taking...
I'm sure that's how it feels. How she must look at us plebes who make it on less than $1 million a year. I don't know how we do it. How do we do it, guys? It's
incremental approach to ameliorating these conditions, but I believe we need fundamental economic reform. And the things that my agenda stands for are considered moderate positions in every other advanced democracy. Represents things that the citizens in every other advanced democracy have. Universal health care, tuition-free college and tech school, paid...
Okay, real quick. Well, let me go to here real quick and go to let's see. These are where are these? The countries with universal health care. Let's see. Here we go. Quote unquote universal health care. Let's give them a look. Okay. Germany, Spain, Denmark, Finland, Luxembourg, Iceland, Poland, Malta, France, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Greece, Romania, Russia, Serbia, United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway. Wait, didn't we say Sweden and Norway? Sweden and Norway. Didn't we already say that? Quit it, you silly person. Guess not. Okay. Finland, Portugal, Czech Republic, Croatia, Bulgaria, and Latvia. Each one of these, here's the individual system. Germany is a Western European country. Okay, they don't have the actuals. I would hope they would have the layout of it. But 25 European countries have it. And then let's see, here's 25, and then Africa is Algeria, Botswana, Burkina Faso. Well, I don't know, Morocco, Rwanda. These are provided by the UN, though. The system insured all but 4% of the population, but that's because it's either picked up by a European country or the UN takes care of it. I'm not kidding. Asia, Bhutan, China, that's nonsense. It does not. Hong Kong has closer to it, but let's see. Primary healthcare in India is provided by city and district hospitals, rural primary healthcare systems. These hospitals provide treatment free of cost. Primary care is focused on immunization, prevention of malnutrition, pregnancy, childbirth, postnatal care, and treatment of common illnesses. This is your kind of generalized emergency care in the United States. It just doesn't get paid for, essentially. Israel is probably closer to what people are shooting for in terms of a system here. This is different, though. All residents of Japan are required by law to have health insurance coverage. That's different. Okay, and then you're like these Middle Eastern countries that have oil, like that are oil rich, often will have a system like this, but it's not available to immigrants. It's not available to anybody who isn't a citizen, and and it's expensive if you have to go there otherwise. Macau, Malaysia, the Maldives, Pakistan. In Pakistan, universal healthcare exists at a provincial level, started by the government of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which launched a universal health insurance program known as the Sahat Insaf card to provide free healthcare to residents of the KPK, where families would be covered up to 10 lakh or $3,500 for treatment. This was further expanded to the Punjab province of Pakistan, to cover more than 31 million families, and announced that an additional $44 billion would US 1.5 billion would be spent over the entire province under Imran Khan. So they have health care up to $3,500 for treatment. Anything past that, you don't. Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Korea, North Korea, of course. Obviously, starvation is not covered under North Korea's universal healthcare system. Sri Lanka, Taiwan, they have a very good system, known as the National Health Insurance System, instituted in 1995. It's a single-payer compulsory social insurance plan. This is closer to what Biden was presenting in the ACA. This is also not what somebody like Maryanne Williamson would consider universal health care. She's not talking about single payer. And if she is, it's an important distinction.
Family leave and a guaranteed living wage. Fundamental reform, and people on the both left and the right are recognizing that there's no reason why they have those things in other countries and we don't have them in ours.
Now, look, I happen to be a conservative, and
that means if you get sick, you gotta die. That's I believe in the Wild West approach. I think God wants gangrene, and I think it was wrong of man to try and wipe it out.
some of those issues I don't agree with, but I think you're, quite frankly, a force for good, and you speak out, and I liked it when you were on that stage.
Because you were attacking other Democrats?
And maybe we would agree on this. I think the media has been tough. They don't tell the truth. I notice with you, they like to dwell on superficial things and inside baseball. And I think they're a real cancer in America.
Speaking of sickness and death.
Speaking of carcinogens early.
Metaphorically. Holy.
Give us your sense of the media in America today, please.
Well, it's exactly what you just said. It has more to do with what we get clicks. It has more to do with what, if it bleeds, it leads. It's a kind of gotcha mentality. And this is why some of the best and the brightest people in America don't even want to run for office.
That's not true. I want to run. I'm just busy. Oh, she wasn't.
Who wants to be exposed to that? It's not just scrutiny, it's smear. When there are so many people who they basically chop the wood and carry the water for whichever political candidate or political party they're interested in, and stoop to the most unethically low levels in order to try to take out of the conversation the people that they don't want to be there. It's bad for our democracy. Like you said, it's way beyond whether we're conservative or liberal. And for that matter,
No. All right. As soon as you start running against someone who is currently the president or running to be the president, you will be under the same scrutiny that they are. And if you bring something to the table that is outside the established norm of either party, you're going to get more scrutiny than people who are well-versed in and pushing something that the party's been working together for in a direction for years, okay? If somebody on the Republican side during the 2016 election came out and said, I think it's a mistake for Republicans to keep trying to seize the SCOTUS. I think we're putting too much focus on the Supreme Court and making people, making that the focus of our legacy. And I want to focus more on short-term legislation that can be sunsetted. They'd be laughed off the stage and they would be vilified nonstop. Right? And it isn't because the established Republicans just can't hear the truth. It's because they're like, are you out of your fucking mind? We have to establish a control point at somewhere, and that is the best bang for our buck, and we're becoming increasingly a marginalized party, and so of course we're going to try and get somebody in there, and as soon as they're in there, stack the court. Duh. What do you think we're going to do? Write legislation? So, of course, their wing of things is going to do that. On the Democratic side, if you have been working to achieve social and civil rights for a very long time, or pay equity, or work in a way that establishes a baseline for Americans, especially when you're talking about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and you're running against a party that wants to decimate both of them, well, all three of them, and they want to use the SCOTUS to do it, and that is their singular focus. And you come in and go, I think we need a politics of love, but a revolutionary kind of love that takes the economic wheel of the United States and yanks it to the right and we do a complete U-turn. That's what she's been saying. We need an economic 180. Right about the time we're getting the pay gap is the smallest it has ever been since they started measuring it. Unemployment, the distance between black unemployment and the general unemployment number has narrowed for the first time. It was always parallel, but if it went up and down, it was always bad, but it never got any closer. It's starting to get closer to the norm. That's progress. It's genuine progress that affects real human lives. And so if you want to come up and piss that away, and you go, I don't know why we're even trying to focus on these petty issues of, I don't know, women's rights and you've got one party that's trying to destroy the EPA. Why isn't somebody calling out that the EPA isn't doing enough by my standard, and therefore my own party and the people involved are in league with the polluters and want everybody to get cancer? That's why you're going to get more scrutiny. And then they're going to look at the fact that you're like, fuck vaccines. You're going to get a little extra attention.
President Eisenhower said, yet the American mind at its best is both liberal and conservative. I think the worst part of this media...
Yeah. And do you think you're going to have a revolutionary thought in either direction if that is the case? Do you either believe what Eisenhower said, and you go, any change is going to be incremental because it's basically going to be a game of escalating Pong, where you're just kind of rising up, trying to like volleyball the idea higher and higher, which takes time and focus and compromise and failure and regain strength.
Is that we have to be just all one or the other and polarized all the time. I don't think anybody has a monopoly on the truth. I think there are high-minded conservative principles.
And that's what Biden's been saying. And that part is what makes it incremental. What?
And there are high-minded liberal principles. And often we have to remind each other about what they are. And I think...
Yes, we do. Knock yourself out. While you're telling me that corporate dem and establishment this and everybody who's a party insider is operating to just kneecap any new ideas. Tell me what those principles are.
As you're saying, the media did this. Too much of the mainstream media has cultivated this gotcha adversarial mentality that's really very, very destructive to the public sector. And I'm glad that so many of us are concerned about it.
Are you out of your mind? You know who you're talking to? If I may. Let's see. Yes, sir?
15 minutes.
Something like that. Is dinner happening? Is that what's happening? Okay, I'll do my best. I want to see. Let's try to do Newsmax, and we'll go videos, and we'll go here. So she thinks Greg Kelly is aware of, and she's so glad he brought up the gotcha clickbaity aspect of the media. Laura Trump, why the swamp is guarding Biden treasure trove. Carl Higbee, the government is not salvageable. Chris Salcido, how many pro-Americans remain in our once trusted institutions? Liberals mocked, ignored Trump on his very scary issue. All of the Bidens should be in handcuffs. Bernard Carrick, left will do anything to stop RFK. Victoria Tenzing and Joe DeGeneva. I think they're the ones talking. They don't think the left gives a shit about Victoria Tenzing and Joe DeGeneva. A blatant act of hypocrisy by Fox News. Fox allegedly practicing Satanist employing. What? Their employees are Satan? If Biden was on phone with Hunter, that is big. Whatever. Chinese may put pressure on Russia to stop grain blockade. John Jordan. Look, a normal headline. Watch. California parents stand up against superintendent. We cannot afford a UPS strike. Former Trump labor secretary. Marine biologist. Drug drops creating cocaine sharks. All right. Well, that's now I'm scared. Thanks, Maryanne. Yeah, you had to do it, didn't you? You had to make me go look around for clickbait on Newsmax and find it. And now I've got to worry about going swimming because cocaine sharks. Terrific. Oh God. Okay. I have dinner in 15 minutes, apparently. I'm barely going to get through this Maryanne video.
Though I'm even more concerned at how many people have just
Worried about cocaine sharks.
to politics because of it.
Now, respectfully, it might take a miracle for you to pull this off, but
The return of you in Course in Miracles, and miracle is I looked up the miracle.
you know all about miracles, and I believe miracles happen, and
You know what? So do I. I think it was a miracle that Greta Van Susteren got your time slot and they bumped you to 10 o'clock at night.
but you would need support from Trump voters to become president of the United States. You would. And, a lot of folks, myself included, really like him. We like the policies. We even like the style.
We like it. They like me a lot.
But for
They
those
like the style. Are you willing to grab other women by the pussy? Are you willing to take that step? Because if you want to win the Greg Kelly vote, it's going to take true commitment.
out there, if you got the nomination, let's say, make your case to the Trump voters. Why should they pick you?
Well, I have heard a lot of Trump voters actually say to me that they would be interested in my candidacy.
Yes, as a torpedo against Joe Biden.
I want an America that's true to the values on which we purport to stand. I think that the Declaration of Independence should be our North Star. And when we allow it to be, this country does very well. And when we neglect those principles, we falter. All men are created equal. God gave all men the innate.
Thank you, Petrazi. Thank you for the super chats, by the way, you guys. I appreciate it. I'm dragging the show kicking and screaming through the fields of Kentucky right now. The rain let up, though. That's good. Appreciate that.
Rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Governments were instituted to secure those rights, and when the government's not doing its job, it's the right of the people to alter it or abolish it. Those are the principles that I...
All right. That was in reference to the monarchy, not democracy itself. You're not going to run on an abolish democracy ticket. Stop it. Stop. Knock it. Again, this is the stroke of the pen fallacy again. And no, she is not English.
Should guide public policy.
She's from Texas and she lived in California.
And I believe public policy should help people thrive in their lives. Not so
Well, there you just lost the entire Trump voter. Sorry.
often thwart people's dreams for being as creative and productive as they might be. When you have 70% of Americans who report that they live with chronic economic stress, that means neither political party is doing what it should be doing to provide enough access to enough people to the blessings of our democracy.
Maryanne Williamson, thank you.
We're just gonna have a situation where a multimillionaire is going to be interviewed by the son of the former New York police commissioner who apparently broomed away his sexual assault allegations and protected him, who can't even ride the bus with his fucking fellow Americans and gripes whenever anybody in the office sits in his chair. We're just going to pretend that he's helping to he's the stand for the T-ball miracle that she's shooting for, and that they both care about the Constitution, and that the primary focus of, like, let's review. Maryanne brings up this French company which can allegedly come over here and pollute all they want because we just let them, because we've been on a deregulation screed, and New Hampshire, I guess, joined in. And then, of course, if we're dissatisfied with our government, we have the right to abolish it, as if dissatisfaction is in and of itself evidence, which it is not. Oh, good Lord. I can't even. It makes me mad. It makes me very upset. I love you guys. Yeah. And then on top of that, this idea that, like, we don't do anything about chemicals in our water, but Europe does.